Good evening. This is John from Clock Repairs Merseyside. Right, as promised, I'm gonna do another little video in reference to bushing work. I've set a few things up here. Normally, some of these things are in the other workshop, but this is better for me to do the YouTube stuff at the moment. Anyway, as regards bushing, right. Obviously, one of the things we're going to do, we'll take the clock to pieces. And then we'll check a few things out. I mean, I'm using an old grandfather clock plate. It hasn't been, as you can see, it's been in and out. I've probably been using it to test cleaning fluids we make sometimes from time to time. You see it's got a nice tide mark on it, and then the other side is pretty clean and be ready for polishing really. Anyway, so this is obviously an old long case clock movement. It's probably the front plate. Yep. Okay. Now, as you can see, various holes. Now, I'm going to use this old fly. Now, obviously, you'd be bushing anything really. It could be a wheel, a car, whatever it's going to be. But I'm going to use this as an example, just to try and cram as much information as I can into the situation so that you get a good general plan, a good idea of what we're doing. Okay, now if I was going to sort of determine whether a hole needed bushing, first off I'd look at the pivot on the cog, the wheel, the pinion. I'd look at that pivot and check that that was pretty uniform and that was in good shape. Okay, so that's what I'd be doing. Then I'd be putting it into the plate in the hole it was in, and I think it's more near to the top obviously, but if you look at, let's get it near to the camera, if you move it from side to side, you're looking at about, that's not exact in there, but you're looking at about only a slight lean of about 3 degrees. Okay, so you're looking at that slight lean of 3 degrees. Now if it's more than that, the probabilities are it needs a bush, so you need to be looking that way. Now obviously what we do is we'll pick a bush and we'll get one that's going to be obviously nearer to the plate sort of size. Now remember that this is all not to scale, this is not to exact what it would be. I'm just giving you a general plan, a general idea, so that you'll have to sort of fill in the blanks yourself with common sense. Now obviously what we're going to try to do is we're going to try and pick a bush that's going to go over that pivot, and obviously with very little movements on that, because obviously when the bush is fitted you can broach it and use a smoothing broach, use a cutting broach, use a smoothing broach, and you can dress it right then, and then you'll get it perfect. You get it perfect. But the first thing obviously, so say for instance, we'll forget that now, but the first thing you're doing is determining whether it needs bushing, and if there's too much movement that way, if it's leaning right over and stuff like that, it's probably going to need bushing. So then you're going to pick your bush. Now that's not the best place to do bushing work, because obviously it's very close to the edge of the plate, so probably we'd pick there. Now we'd then obviously find a bush that pretty much fitted over the end of the pivot, or if it was smaller and you could broach it out. Now you don't want to, because you're pressing the bush in, you don't want to make it so that it's too much to broach out, because you run the risk of it moving. As you're doing it, you run the risk of it doing that. You're going to move it and it's going to fall out and it's going to loosen it and it's going to, and things like that. So you want to get something that's relatively close. And then if you make a bush, obviously you measure the pivot and the hole that you make in the bush. We always make them just a touch smaller, just so we can dress them and smooth them, and so that they're nice. That's how we go about doing it. So okay, I think we're all pretty much on that, what we've got to do. Okay, now the reason obviously you want to go a bit smaller than the pivot, in my opinion, or very close, is because you're going to want to polish this pivot, aren't you? You know, you're going to put that in your lathe and you're going to give that a polish, you're going to dress that. So, you know, you will take a little bit of metal away no matter how you do it, and then obviously you harden it with, you know, with a broach as well, you know, make it look nice, but you're going to take a little bit away. So you don't want to start off with getting a bush which is totally just on, then broaching it a bit and then polishing your pivot, and then, you know, it's going to need bushing again. There's going to be too much play. So you need to sort of, you know, just think of these things as you're going along. So yeah, so we'd look at, say for instance, say I picked that. I mean, obviously that's not going to be no good, is it? Going to be no good. Now, obviously, when a pivot hole needs rebushing, obviously it's only one side of it that's gone, you know, wrong, really. At the end of the day, what's actually happened is at the end of it, you know, one side it's dropped down, or there's been a lot of pressure off the weight, it's pulled with the movement, the intermeshing, it's pulled and it's worn away, and then you get this thing, and then you get, obviously, you know, in a word, you know, the depth ends up wrong, but the effect it has is that the wheels bind with the pinions, and it causes the clock to stop. It causes friction. The main enemy of clocks is friction, mechanical clocks, that is. It's friction, so you want to try to eliminate that as much as possible. But anyway, getting back to where we are, and I think I mentioned it in the last video. I haven't actually brought them in. Anyway, what I would be looking at, so obviously I'd look at the pivot hole, I'd look at the plate, and I'd see the pivot, and the pivot was like quite egg-shaped, should we say. If we looked at it through a loop, it would be egg-shaped. So what I would do is so say for instance, we'll pick a big hole for reference like that, yeah. So what I would sort of do, so say the pivot hole was sort of egg-shaped this way, which is usually the case because that's where the weight. What I would do is right opposite it, I would probably draw file it so that the two, it was sort of uniformly egg-shaped, if you get what I'm saying. So it's uniformly egg-shaped, right? So then when you put your cutting broach through, so we'll pick this Chinesian one, you see you've got about 6 sides, so it's got to level up. If you keep it straight with what it's doing, it's got to level up. So it'll level up and it'll make an even hole then. You know, and as you go round, the hole will become perfectly, you know, round shaped. I mean, if I go through there now, you know, you've got to keep it straight though. You know, you can't start going in at a weird angle and stuff like that, because, you know, it's not going to work too well. And then, you know, so we'd do that, and then obviously we'd get it so that the hole was perfectly round. It took up, and you know, you'd look at it again through a loop, or in our case we use a scope, but you know, we'd look at it that way, and then we'd rebush it. Okay, now once you've got that done, so what you've done is you've measured, you've took a measurement of your plate width for your bush, and you've put your and you've you know, you get it near to there. I mean, often with grandfather clocks and stuff like that, I mean, we make them, so we just totally take a measure, you know, with a caliper, and we measure it, and we do it that way, and it's handmade, and we find they're all right. You know, I know it takes a bit more time, but you know, we can. What I tend to do is when I'm on my lathe, I'll just, while I'm there, I'll knock a few out, if you like. I mean, I'll sort of make you know, if I need 2, I'll make 4, you know, that type of thing, and then have a couple on stock. As you can see here, you know, these have been made, you know, they've been made on the lathe, but we'll make a few. It's probably quite close to it, which it actually is. It's quite close to it. You know, we'd broach that out a bit further, and then that would go in, and if you look, it's pretty right on it as well. So you know, that was made on the lathe, so that's what we do. And then, you know, you can see there's a bit of space there for bushing. Now, once we've done that, now when you're fitting, when you're going to measure the broach up, when you've broached your hole out, what you want to do is, so say for instance, I'll actually do this on this plate just to show you. So we've got that plate there, and that there is not, you know, obviously nowhere near it. So I'm gonna just broach it a bit more. Now remember, I'm doing this, I'm looking at my camera and trying to do this, so it's a bit more difficult, but I'm gonna try and do my best for you. So we just continue to broach that out. Okay, until it got pretty near enough. Which it's not yet. What we're actually looking for is we're looking for it just to slightly sit in the hole. So, you know, just go nice and easy. Don't go mad. Don't start, you know, taking too much away. I mean, you know, we've had various apprentices working here, and you know, they've got a little bit to go with it. They've been broaching things out for a little bit, so now then they get a bit impatient, go a little bit too much, then the bush falls right through the hole. That's pretty close now. Now remember, you want to try and get it quite tight in the hole, because you want to broach it out, so you don't want it moving about. Once it's pressed in, you want it pressed in. So I'm hoping I don't go too far here because I can't see it properly. Now, for me, a little bit more now. Now, you see the way that is just sitting in the hole, like that. Okay, so that's pretty good. So what I would do now is, we have this, and I'll just zoom out for you a bit so you can see it. Now, it's simply is just a press you buy off eBay or Amazon or, you know, wherever, and that I think was about 59 quid. We've had it for years, so maybe the dearer now, I don't know, maybe the cheaper, I don't know. It's a Chinesium thing, not particularly heavy. It's perfect for this. What we also use it for is, you know, when you're taking mainsprings out of barrels, cylinders and stuff like that, and you're cleaning them and you're putting them back in. Well, we use it to press the lids back on, because we can actually fit the arbor in between these slits here. You see there's various slits, so we fit the arbor in between there and then press it. And you can actually put like little little discs on top, you know, to press it in. Again, everything's, you know, pretty easy. Now, what I do here now with this, just try and get you in a bit closer, is I'd now just sort of centre that up, and then I'd come down and just press it in. Now, it's a bit proud on that side, to be fair, so it's not the exact right bush for that. But I mean, you know, you could use a rifler file and you could file that off, you know. Now, obviously, this type of bush, it doesn't really need an oil sink, because it's you know, it's on a it's on a, you know, a gut line barrel, you know, so it on a long case clock, so it doesn't really need. But some of these other bushings, sometimes we'll put a little heat sink on them, we'll fit the bush and then we'll heat sink them off. You can use a you know, you can use a drill bit if it'll fit in. You know, we've got various bears and stuff like that to do things. I mean, as long as you do the job right and it does it right and it does the job, as far as I'm concerned, what you're comfortable with. I mean, everyone finds their sweet spot, should we say, and that's what they do. But that's pretty much how we do bushes all the time. We've never, you know, as I say to you, we've never owned a bushing machine. We do actually own one type of bushing machine, a screw-in bushing machine, which is sometimes it's been handy, but you can no longer get the screw-in bushing for them now. So I mean, that's no point. as I say, they were always as a, you know, if we were working on something particularly cheap and nasty, we weren't too, you know, anyway, we very rare, I was given that by to me, and as I say, it was there, and we had the screw-in bushes, and then I know you can't buy them anymore anyway. So that's pretty much how we do them bushing, and obviously we dress all this up and it'd look nice and it'd look all shiny. So I hope that's been of help to someone. Another few words of advice about bushing work: when you check your pinions on your clock, make sure that, you know, they're smooth and they're okay, because if they've got grooves in them or anything like that, that's going to go on the inside of the new bush that you've done. Also, be very wary when someone's been punching things. You know, they've used this type of effort. Let me get it here. This is an automatic center punch. So often you'll see this type of thing. You know, they'll punch round the hole, right? So they'll punch around the hole to sort of obviously close it in, and it gives, you know, it sorts the depth and problems out. The only one of the downsides of that is that what will happen, what will happen is that your pinion, over time, as it goes round, because you've punched it in, it causes like a sharp like little pip coming out of the hole, and so it starts grooving the pinion, and you might find that you'll have to, you know, replace the pinion, cut it off, drill it and replace the pinion. Now, you know, it's not the hardest job in the world to do, but depending on where it is, isn't it? I mean, it's great if it's on the likes of a wheel like this, isn't it, where you've got like something to grip there or something to grip there. That's absolutely fine. I mean, you can cut that off, you can re-drill it, you can put a new pinion in, you can dress it, you can do what you want to do, and that's great. But you know, that doesn't always happen. You know, you'd end up with you end up with the pinion, you know, a pinion on here, and it's the only thing you've got to grip onto, and then you're trying to, you know, and then it's small, it doesn't hold properly, you know, you'd have to put it on a plate, and, you know, you'd have to, you know, there's loads of, I mean, these things that you, in the general working of clock, you know, doing clock restoration service, and you don't come across it all the time. You'd often come across it when someone's been working on things. I mean, it's amazing. And as I say to people about clocks, people say, well, it's worked for 9 years since it was like, yeah, that's fantastic. Because the point is that a clock will work because it runs so slowly most of the time. It'll work for ages and ages and ages without a problem. It'll work for a long time, there won't be a problem. And then when there's a problem, it's left then to the better clockmaker or the better clock restorer, and he's got to pick up and rectify. And, you know, I mean, I won't leave things. If I see something, I really won't leave it. You know, I'll try and sort of make it better if I can. And this is the thing. And so you end up sometimes doing more work than what you've sort of signed up for. And this is the thing. And this is through sometimes, you know, bad workmanship, because people, you know, I think it goes back centuries. I mean, some people basically don't give a crap, do they, what they do, as long as it works and they get the money and they're away, you know, there you go, that'll do. I mean, it's not for me that. I'd sooner try and do a job properly, if I, you know, or not at all, if I'm honest. I mean, you know, I do from time to time knock jobs back. I'll never take a job on that. You know, when a customer rings me up and goes, I've got this clock and it's I've took it to pieces, or so, it's not for me, I'm sorry. We you know, we're a bit too busy for that. And it goes away. I like to get a clock in to do repairs on it when it's been, you know, it hasn't been too messed around with. If it has been worked on before, it's great if they know the person and I know of the person, or sometimes I might know them. And it's great. You can get a flavour of the work. You know the work's going to be good. You know there's going to be no messing around. But again, you know, it doesn't always happen. But you know, thankfully, most clock most clockmakers are of a certain breed, aren't they, and they do try to do things. I believe years ago that obviously clockmakers were blacksmiths, so I believe in the early days a lot of these punching marks you'll see will be, you know, off the blacksmith. I don't know, but you know, that's what I hear. So I hope that's helped you out with the bushing situation. But that's the method we use all the time. It's been getting used for years. We've never had a problem. The press is a must-have in my opinion. The reason being is that you can apply even pressure you can apply even pressure all the way down, controlled pressure, rather than, I mean, you know, I've seen it, I think, people putting it on a plate and putting a punch over, a flat punch over, and then tapping it in. Yeah, that probably works okay, but I find this to be a much better idea, and just pressing it in. Oh, and another thing as well, I must point out, let's get that plate again. Right, you've got your plate here now. You remember before where I was sort of, I've broached it out and I've put the brooch over, and I've got it so that it just sits in the hole. It just sits in, and then you press it in. Now, if you get it where it's not sitting in, the better plan is not to try and press it, because what you don't want to do is you don't want it to start spreading the plate. Do you know what I mean? Because if you do that, you're going to end up with depthing problems. You're going to end up with the, you know, with the, you know, you're going to end up it pushing out, and especially if there's something close to it, another hole. So, you know, really, you just want it to go into the hole, you know, not, it's a practice thing. I don't think, you know, what we do here when we have, say, my grandson Aaron, or, you know, we actually have Luke who used to work with us. I used to get them like here on this bench here, and I'd be getting them bushing old plates. You know, we'd have a load of them bushes, you know, where, you know, what we buy, and we'd drill holes in them and all that, and say, right, okay, bush that, and we'd get them to practice, you know, doing that. But pretty much that's our way of doing it. Not saying it certainly isn't the only way, I know that, but it may not be the best way. Some people might not like it, but you know, it's worked for us. We don't have any problems doing it that way. Never get stuff back. I mean, and we've repaired, well, 1,000 clocks maybe now. I don't know. We've restored a lot of clocks. I mean, you know, we've been going many years, so there's, you know, we know it works properly. But that's the way, by hand. I mean, as I say, see how long that took there. Well, we're only 23 minutes into the video, so it gives you an idea. It'll take you 15 minutes to set one of them bushing machines up and then line it up on the plate and all that, you know. Anyway, they're not for me. I'm old fashioned, get on with it. As my uncle would say, crack on, stop messing around, and that's it. Anyway, this is John from Clock Repairs Merseyside. I hope that's helpful for you. I'm going to try and keep me videos going now. We've just become monetized, so, you know, see what happens there, but hopefully we'll be able to do some better quality videos. We've just had BT in, and they fitted Wi-Fi. Well, it hasn't worked out quite that well, to be honest with you, but you know, they've helped, because I'd like to start doing other things with our clock workshop, you know, a bit more fly on the wall stuff if I can, but I don't know whether that'll work out. The BT stuff hasn't worked out like I wanted it to, but you know, there you go. So I think we just have to do many of these videos, but I hope this is practical enough for some people, hands-on enough. As I say, I do listen to what you say, and I do my best to get it right. Just unfortunately, as you can imagine, we're a working company. We have to earn our living, and we have to, you know, pay our astronomical bills that are, you know, coming through all the time. Anyway, John from Clock Repairs Merseyside. Have a great evening, and you know, give it a go. See what you think. Thank you.